understanding that a general ed teacher has is that those are what we ELL teachers use. And we're trying to change the perception that that's what everybody uses. Is that correct?
Well, I think we're trying to,
With ELL students.
we're trying to mesh the content standards with the language development standards.
Yeah.
And with the collaboration piece, help those teachers to learn to work with us so that everybody is a language teacher, okay? And that, you know, the content standards and the language standards can work together. So you can be doing a science lesson and also be working on a language standard. I mean, and the social and instructional language standard is a part of every class. Okay, so you've got language there, and then you have your content standards. Okay, so that's the goal. And so that's important information to hear. And I think if you are able to take that e-workshop that WIDA offers, that's self-paced, they do a really nice workshop, and they have great videos and examples of real classroom teachers that have practiced this, that talked about how they collaborated with teachers and how they work together. And I think that those pieces, this training is going to be important, not just for English learner teachers, but for all teachers. And so that's the information that we're trying, and the intent is to get out, you know, within the next few weeks to administrators. So as they're planning the professional development calendar coming up, the people who do that planning will understand the importance of making time for teachers to have this professional development time and the time to collaborate. So it's not just Heather and Tracy sitting together doing the training, but that you have the opportunity to do it with other teachers that work with you.
Do we know when the WIDA results come out?
They'll be later this year.
It's June 18th.
Yeah.
What did you say? June
19th or 18th.
June 9th.
Well, we
done.
didn't. Yeah, we didn't finish till mid-April.
Wow.
Which was, you know, 6 weeks later than what we typically end. So they had to push the timeline out another 6 weeks, Linda.
Right.
Yeah. They have so many states now, they can't get it all done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the reason for that. Any other questions? Darcy, do you have any questions about what you heard?
No, it's very clear. Very, you know, when you can get into the weeds and apply it to a certain kid in a certain class and a certain, you know, then maybe questions, but I know which way the direction to go.
Okay. How are you feeling about the collaboration piece? Do you think it's realistic?
It depends.
Yeah.
It depends. When you have one kid per grade, you know, and each, you know, it really depends. Some teachers you can get really in there, and some teachers you just have to not.
Well, I think if you can pilot, even, you know, pilot it, the experience, even with one teacher who has the interest and the willingness to do this with you, you'll find that the teachers, the classroom teachers, the content teachers are going to say, well, this is good for a lot of students, not just the students who are identified English learners.
Yeah.
And so it might be that somebody that you know would be a good person to start with the collaboration. And if that person has positive experience, then they kind of can be a little PR for you. You know, in smaller places, we're going to have to start with baby steps, I think. But it's going to be really important to hear from all of you as this process starts, to know how it's going or not going and what supports people are going to need to make it happen, because there is a commitment to making it happen. But because it's new and because of the pandemic and the COVID situation and all of that, it's, it's just put another layer of challenge on there for, all of you.
Yeah, towards the end of last school year before the pandemic, I had a first grade teacher who was excited and willing to collaborate with me using some kind of book I had. But once the pandemic hit, she is like, I don't think I can handle this year.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's understandable that, people are just trying to do what they can and didn't want to try to add one more thing to their plate that was already overflowing. So, all right, well, what I think I'll do is I'm going to go to the PowerPoint. And so Heather and Darcy, you have already seen that, and I'm just going to do a modified version. So, I get it. You've got plenty of things to do if you choose to pass on the rest. But I want to be sure that the two of you, if there's anything else you wanted to ask or add or whatever, that you have that opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see if we can get technology to work. Okay. Okay. Do you see something that says the WIDA ELD standards framework? Yeah, okay, great. All right. Okay, so you've got the new organization here. It's in various sections, and this manual is almost 400 pages long. All right, it's really quite a document, and there's a lot of information in here, and it is organized and tabbed by sections. And you can download this manual for free online, or if there's money in your district to purchase it for you, I think it's about $30. Okay, and April did indicate that she thought that the CARES Act fund, if your district has any of those, that's acceptable to use that money to purchase these manuals. So if you want to ask about that, I personally like having that book to hold on to and flip to the page and whatever. And maybe Linda, when you were talking about technology, you would too. But, some people prefer just to have it online. So it's organized by the big ideas, understanding the framework with the 5 standards, the grade level cluster materials, the resources, and then the appendices. And they're really useful materials in here. All right, let's see if we can get to the next one. All right, I don't know why this, and I'm just going to adjust this so that, okay, so your big ideas for 2020, they organize this around equity of opportunity and access, and I think we've seen how that was a problem during the pandemic for many of our students across the board, whether it be access to machines or materials, internet. So this is looking for opportunity and access to all learning and not segregating students because of their language. The integration of the content and the language, just what we were talking about earlier, so that all teachers are language teachers. And in order for that to happen, you have to have the collaboration among stakeholders, okay? And your stakeholders are all of your teachers, not just your English learners teachers, but it's also your administrators, okay? Your curriculum coordinators, and your families, and having your families, the parents, the guardians, understand what the intent is and the functional approach to language. So it's not just putting, a worksheet in front of students with words that have no meaning, that we are connecting language development to meaningful ideas and content that's being studied. And we need this equity and opportunity so that students can prepare for, after high school opportunities, civic lives, career. So it's really important that our students see language as being purposeful. The framework, you can see it's sort of like nesting, like the little Russian nesting dolls here, with the standard statements encompass everything. And then this is where you really delve in with your key language uses, your language expectations, and your proficiency level descriptors. And the key language uses they refer to as KLUs. Language proficiency level descriptors, you often see them referred to as PLDs. And within the training that's available and in the manual, it's really thorough and clear description of how to learn to use these successfully. And I do want to just put in a plug that we have, the state is sponsoring a WIDA 2-session workshop that there are contact hours for. It's on June 9th and June 16th. It's a Wednesday, 9:30 to 11:30. And like I said, a WIDA trainer will be providing it, and it's called Planning with the ELD Standards. So it'll be hands-on for you. And you do need to be able to attend both sessions though, because they go together. And the registration link is on the DOE website, and maybe I can pull it up and put it in the chat before we leave. But that should be really helpful to people. And there are 40 participants right now. There are 17 people that are signed up for it. So there's still openings. We hope people will take advantage of that, although I can understand it's at the end of the year. So these are the standard statements, and they haven't changed. Okay, so the standards for social instructional, and then it goes through the different content areas of language arts, math, science, and social studies. And so the abbreviated ELD standard 1, the only change here is the word for. So making it active, language for social and instructional purposes, language for language arts. Okay, so standard 1, language for social and instructional purposes, it's connected to every class that a student participates in. The 4 was put into the statement to demonstrate the purposeful use in meaningful language. When you get to your KLUs, your key language uses, you have your select genre families that appear across the content areas. Oops, sorry about that. You have narrate, inform, explain, and argue there. The KLUs summarize prominent language across your content areas, and it helps the educators to organize and coordinate their instruction. And the 4 key uses of academic language were introduced in the Can-Do Descriptors, the key uses edition 2016, and they were recount, explain, argue, and discuss. But in this development of the 2020 edition, the WIDA researchers analyzed the latest academic content standards, research literature, and disciplinary practices, and they felt they wanted to update their approach. So they identified these 4 key language uses: the narrate, inform, explain, and argue, and they appear across all content areas and teachers can use them to prioritize and organize the integration of their content and language. And in the 2020 edition, there, oops, lost my notes. The key language uses help language and content teachers collaborate, is that collaborate word again, and coordinate instruction for multilingual learners. So you're going to look at your unit and you're going to look at what you want, what your outcomes are going to be, and you're going to decide, is the student going to need to narrate about something, inform, explain, argue a point, and then do some working backwards in your planning, which I know you all know how to do. So they wrote the standards out in a way that aligns with how the state standards are written out. So your ELD standard comes first. So ELD LA, language for language arts. Then you have your grade level cluster 2, 3. And the key language use is narrate here. And the mode of communication is expressive. So this one, the goal, the expectation would be multilingual learners construct language arts narratives that orient audience to context, develop story with time and event sequences, complication, resolution, or ending, engage and adjust for audience. Okay, so it really adds specificity to the ELD standard statements and key language uses, and they are statements most similar to what educators generally find in academic content standards. Okay, and there are language expectations for all grade level clusters that you will see. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about what I've gone through so far? Just kind of chime in. Okay, your proficiency level descriptors, PLDs, they describe your language development activities that target the language expectations, and they really look very much the same as what you saw in the 2016 edition in terms of the layout of them. One thing to remember when you're using them, that they're written for what occurs at the end of each proficiency level, and each level includes the descriptors and builds on the previous levels. So proficiency level 4 is going to include everything that was in proficiency level 1, 2, and 3. There's that assumption. So as you're explaining that and collaborating with other teachers, that would be something important to point out to those that are not familiar with that. Your materials are organized in 6 grade level clusters. They will continue to correspond to the access testing that our students take annually. So you have kindergarten, and then you have first grade, and then you have your 2, 3, your 4, 5, your 6, 8, and your 9, 12. So WIDA recognizes that English language development does occur over multiple years. It's variable. It depends on many factors, such as multilingual learners' ages, maturation, classroom experiences, motivation, attitude, types of educational programming, prior educational opportunities. So it's important to remember that students are going to progress at varying rates. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind. Your supplemental resources include annotated language samples, a closer look at your KLUs, and the collaborative planning piece actually gives you scenarios of situations of how this works in a real school setting. I think are very helpful in getting people started with this collaborative planning piece. It's a jump off point for these co-curricular conversations. What's staying the same? The can-do philosophy is still there, emphasizing assets and potential of multilingual learners. And I just can't emphasize enough how important it is, as you are the ones that are communicating the most about these students, that we try to always recognize and capitalize on what a student can do and what their strengths are and what they are able to offer to the learning community. Quite often we hear about all the things that the students are not able to do or what they struggle with and what their challenges are. But we really want to try to be asset-based and get more educators on board that way, looking at what the students are able to do. So the can-do philosophy has not been updated, okay, but it continues to flow through this new document. So we still have the ELD standard statements, the 6 levels of language proficiency, and the 6 grade level clusters. And what's updated or new, the reorganization into the 4 components, the more inclusive modes of communication. So interpretive and expressive are now the modes of communication. The grade level cluster materials, they're much more in depth with your language expectations, your language functions, and your language features. Proficiency level descriptors and the annotated language samples. So it gives you specific lessons that you can use. I'm going to skip that slide and go to this one. So we talked about next steps. Could be you can download from the WIDA website this edition. There are lots and lots of resources at the WIDA website, and that's where the self-paced e-workshop is. And one of the things that I spoke about is that if you are in a small district, like Linda, it seems like you're kind of a lone ranger there. If you have any interest in doing the self-paced e-workshop and meeting virtually with some other teachers who are taking it so that you have your own little professional learning community, I'm willing to organize that, and we can put something together, because this is the type of material that you're going to need to take in a little bit, process it, in the fall, use it, and then talk to colleagues about what worked, what didn't work, questions that came up, how did you deal with different situations. 400-page manual, it's a lot to go through. And I want people to be realistic about the fact that this isn't going to be something that you just look at the manual and are going to feel great about jumping in and doing the whole thing all at once in September. Okay, this is going to take lots of time, intent, collaboration. And so we want everyone who wants to have a chance to collaborate. So we have let people know to email myself or April, and we can try to put something together if there's interest. So just a reminder that there's a WIDA focus bulletin, which is really great on collaboration and gives lots of examples of how that can be done. And so that's in your resource piece under professional learning resources. Okay, and I talked about the e-workshop earlier. You can find it on the ESOL webpage.
Robin, I just have a question about that. I did
What?
register for that e-workshop in June.
Yep.
So is that preparing educators to then facilitate with teachers in their district, or is there another purpose?
It's to help with the planning process. And, you know, it's one of the first offerings. So I think when we're looking at a teacher facilitator for doing this, we're looking for somebody who will sort of help to organize and lead the meetings and keep a focus to them, not necessarily that you're going to be the expert with all the answers.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I think if we have enough interest with that, we can speak with WIDA. The state has not made decisions yet about the upcoming year and the professional development offerings that the state allocates a certain amount of funds towards these professional development opportunities. So that will help April to make some choices about what people want and need. Okay, so it's not specifically designed for that, but certainly I think it puts you at a more knowledgeable place than someone who hasn't done it, Heather.
Thanks.
Sure. Okay, and this presentation is on, I don't know if it's up there yet, but this week it should get loaded onto the main YouTube channel, the presentation that I did on Friday at the workshop. So that is another place, if you have colleagues that want to, look into that they can go there and see it. And I did go into a little more depth. I'm kind of whipping through it right now, but so again, about interested in being part of the PLC. If you know anybody that wants to join these office hours, and doesn't have to be an ESOL teacher, can be any Maine public educator. And also to get teachers subscribing on the ESOL educators listserv. Okay, April always has a list, more than anybody can ever get to every week. But you might have teachers that would find something of interest in her language newsletter. And I did put out there at the presentation if there were any districts offering professional learning on the standards, if they were willing to invite educators from other districts to participate. And we'll see if we have any. I'm thinking it would be more the larger districts that might be organizing something that would be looking to maybe, bring in some of the smaller outlining communities. Like Heather, you said you worked with Waterville and Augusta, and maybe there might be something going on there that you could be a part of. And the timeline is there is an expectation that the Maine educators, and please note that this says Maine educators, not ESOL educators, but Maine educators will become familiar with the 2020 standards framework. We want all teachers to know that these 2020 standards, English language development standards, are there for our students, and that the full implementation requires the teacher collaboration. And that takes planning, as you all know, to make the time for that to happen. And we know it's not easy. There are so many things that teachers are trying to cover in those professional development times. And always, if you have any questions, comments at any time, please feel free to email April or I. And, this is new for all of us. And so your thoughts and ideas are really important to us. And you are the people that are doing this in the front lines. And so you have to let us know what's working and what isn't working so that we can check and readjust as appropriate. And if what we're doing is not supporting you in a way that's intended, then we absolutely want to know that and come up with a better plan. Okay, so that was sort of the presentation in a nutshell. I'm gonna get out of that. And yeah, so any thoughts about any of that?
Well, the priority notices are very helpful for getting the administrators to want to take action.
Right, and that's being developed. Okay, we started a draft, and April's got to look through it, and so I'm not exactly sure when she hopes to get it out, but I'm thinking it would maybe be out by the end of next week, Heather.
Oh, yeah.
Because-
I was just saying that they are helpful. I wasn't trying to rush.
Well, I know that they start planning already for professional development. And does your district ever do any professional development in the summer?
Not really. No.
No. Okay.
I did have a question. I remember you had talked about it in the presentation, what were good parts to use, and I forgot what you said. What exactly we're supposed to use to make the learning objectives for the following ELL school year? Where are we supposed to get the wording from that?
So when you get your access scores,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you're going to have your, just like always, you're
Right.
going to have your access scores. Then you have your own information from your own, assessments of your students, or you're going to have, your screener information. And then you're going to look at the key language uses within your lessons, your lesson design. Okay. And then from there, you're going to, it's like a planning backwards
Yeah, a
mode.
lot of stuff.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you're going to plan. Okay.
So the key language uses are used for the goals and objectives.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Those are really important. And like I said, they do a great job explaining it, the presentation in that self-paced e-workshop. The manual lays it out quite nicely. I mean, the online materials are the same as the manual. For me personally, it's easier to flip back and forth between pages when I'm like, okay, what did they mean by that? And you want to go find a word, but for some people, it's just easier to do it with the online edition. But either way, it's a pretty hefty. It's
Yeah,
like
I got the book. Yeah.
you did get the book, yeah. Good.
Now, is that for individual lessons or from the document that's created for the entire year? Is that key language uses also?
Yep.
The goals. Okay.
Yep. But start with, and that's where I think the planning workshop that on the 9th and the 16th is really going to help us. Okay. We are not expecting that your ILAPs are going to be connected this year
Mm-hmm.
to the new standards. Okay, because people haven't had time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I mean, if people want to make a stab at it, go for it. But that there's not an expectation that in this upcoming school year that will happen.
Okay.
It's too soon. Yeah, we're really thinking this is the year for people to learn about it, practice it, figure out how to do it. We're not thinking that it's not full implementation. It's learning about it.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a lot to learn. And it really it got backed up because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Everything got stalled. That's why it's not 2021 edition of the standards. But it didn't make any sense to roll it out sooner.
Yeah.
Because it was just too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Heather, I do appreciate your thoughts, your comments, your feedback. They're really helpful, to April and myself, in looking at how to support moving forward. Anything else?
No, I guess I've got to get going. So
Sure.
thank
Yep.
you so much today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye, Tracy. Good to
Okay.
see you both. Take
Hey,
care.
good to see you too. Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye.